Hi, guys. Welcome back. We hope you are having a wonderful week or whatever day of the week you're listening to this on.
Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, weekend, who knows? Doesn't matter.
And today we're going to be talking about that pesky little voice in your head, which can sometimes be your foe and sometimes be your friend.
And that's what we're getting into today. So I think this is quite a big topic, and I'm excited to speak about it because this has been one of the, I guess, stumbling blocks for most of my healing journey anyway, is that when I first got into like, oh shit, I've got loads of trauma. Oh God, I need to heal this. As most people do, we try and think our way through it. So for me, not only did that look at, intellectualizing everything, but also in that process of doing so, I was like, the solution is just to control my mind and control my thoughts and think positively and do the affirmations and just master my mind and everything will be okay. Because like Pearl said, like your mind really can be either your best friend or it can be your worst enemy. And if you're listening to this, it's probably somewhere in between. Hopefully it's not too bad. But trauma, the way it influences and it programs us is, of course, it influences our thoughts, our feelings, our actions, our behaviors. And a lot of the times the thoughts in our head simply, it's not a happy place. And we don't keep that in check. We don't even really pay attention to like, hey, I'm having really shitty thoughts right now. Hey, and this really doesn't feel good. Like, why am I thinking about the past and going over it over and over and over again? And this isn't nice.
And it's making you feel worse.
And it's making you feel worse. And it becomes this vicious cycle. And every time that you have that thought, every time that you let this kind of programming go on and on and on, you're reinforcing those thought patterns.
Yeah, I think we have around 70,000 thoughts a day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And if you imagine having 70,000 thoughts a day, the majority of those are thoughts that you had the day before, then you're just running a set of programs consistently that are just keeping you the same. This is what we call, I guess, our personality. The person that we are made up of these thoughts. But the problem is, if 70,000 of those thoughts, or the majority of them, are bad thoughts, then how are you feeling on the inside? And this is the problem. It's like, how the fuck do you get out of this position of like, yeah, okay, cool, my thoughts are bad, but what do I do about it? Because thinking your way out of the problem isn't going to solve the problem.
Yeah. And something I learned recently, actually, the voice in your head actually has a location in your brain.
Right.
It's called the default mode network.
Mm-hmm.
And studies have actually shown that when there is an overactivity in that area, it's linked to depression. So, yes, your thoughts can make you feel depressed. They can make you feel sad. So, and I think as well, a lot of the time when we experience trauma, that we always say like overthinking is under feeling, and we always say you got to feel it to heal it. So if you're not feeling in your body, it means you're overthinking your head,
Mm-hmm.
which is obviously, like you said, it's adding to that cycle going round and round and round. So I guess the question is, what are we actually going to do about this voice in the head? How do we manage it? What do we do about it? How do we get it to shut up?
The first thing is you've got to start reining it in, and this is a general process of first becoming aware of your own thoughts, because a lot of the time we think we are our thoughts, right?
Mm-hmm.
And one of the purposes of meditation is to become the observer of, rather than identifying as, yeah, I am useless, I'm hopeless, why is it always me, and believing that as like, this is me speaking. The reality is that the thought in your head, we're going in the rabbit hole here, it isn't you.
Yes.
You're not that person. The thoughts in your head is just your brain. The thought, you hearing those thoughts, that's you. But we identify as the thoughts as rather than the person that's listening. So if you can imagine you're having a conversation with someone, you take yourself out of the mind right now. Your best friend has just come to you and they've said, "Hey, I'm really useless. I always lose. Everything that I try, I never win. I'm a failure. I'm really ugly. I can never get anything right." Do you listen to that person and think, that's mine, that's me? Or do you listen as the friend, ready to give them support and advice and kind of say to them, hey, yo, that's not true. You're amazing. You're brilliant. Like, there's a long list of reasons why we're friends. We wouldn't be if you weren't the person that you are. Like, don't talk to yourself that way, because like, you don't deserve to. That's the relationship that I'm talking about there. That's you and your mind. Your mind is that friend. It's telling you these things. The only problem is we're disconnected, and rather than being the other side, the observer, going, oh, okay, cool, that's a nice thought, but it's not true, we go, yes, that is true, I'm going to listen to that. And then over time, when you keep having those same thoughts, it becomes your identity.
Yeah. And then also as well, because you keep having more and more thoughts, you get stuck in the mind more, which means you're in the body less. Now, I know what you're thinking. Oh, but that's so much easier said than done. So I'm going to give you a little tip, a little trick that you can do if you struggle to separate yourself from the voice in your head. Give the voice in your head a name, but like something funny, like Moody Maggie or like Grumpy Gale or something, anything like that. Give it a voice so that whenever it's talking to you, like, what is your problem, Gale? Why are you so mad today? Or why are you so upset? And realize that you can actually talk back to the voice. And by talking back to the voice, you're reprogramming the voice in your head by saying, hey, actually, no, I am looking nice today. I do feel confident today, or I can do that thing that I'm going to do tomorrow. And I don't like what you're saying, and I don't have to listen to you. And realize that actually you have the power to change that. You have the power to talk back. You have the power to say stuff to the voice and change the way the voice talks to you. So that's one thing that you can do to, yeah, I guess realize that, hey, it's not me, it's you. Literally.
Literally, it's not me, it's you. But thanks.
and you know, always just say another thing that you can do. You just reminded me is just thank it for its opinion. It's an opinion. It's not real. It's not fact. It's just a voice. Think of it as another person giving you their 2 pence, and you're just politely saying, "Well, thanks for that information. Thanks for your opinion. I'm gonna carry on with my day now." Because you don't have to absorb it and you don't have to listen to it.
It's true. It goes into the group of limiting beliefs. You know, these things, these thoughts that we have repetitively that keep us small, that we begin to believe and, you know, adopt as our person, as our identity, as ourselves. They're limiting us. So in order to unlimit ourselves, in order to get through these barriers, we have to start addressing the beliefs that we do have. Where in my life do I not believe that I'm good enough? Where do I say to myself that I'm not worthy of this? Where am I telling myself that this isn't something that I can achieve or do or be? Because the only thing that is stopping you is the belief that you can't. And we have to start addressing these things. So when it comes to like your thoughts and even noticing like, hey, okay, it's one step to realize that there's these thoughts going on in your head, but you also need to identify the patterns, because there will be patterns. If you have a thought like I'm ugly, for example, this is actually interestingly one of the things that got me into affirmations. I used to think that I was unattractive and I was really insecure with the way I looked. So I got into affirmations and I reversed it and I changed the belief and told myself I was beautiful every day. And guess what? I think I'm beautiful now.
Yeah, beautiful, honey.
Exactly. But this was something that I had to work on. And the only reason I realized that this was a pattern, something that I held as a limiting belief, is because I first realized that I had this thought. I paid attention to it, but then I started writing down every time I had this thought and what version of. So what I would encourage you to do, this takes time, and honestly, it will change your life if you practice this, is keep a notebook, or maybe if that's too much for you, your phone, notes app or something like that. And every time that you do notice that you have one of these thoughts that isn't serving you, write it down. After a week, review it. After a month, review it. And then over that time span, over 30 days, call it, you will see a pattern of the same things coming up again and again and again. Hello, those are your limiting beliefs. Those are the things that are running your program on default. These are the things that are shaping the way that your life looks and the way that you feel. Start there, identify the pattern, and then on the other side of it is then you start addressing, okay, well, I have this limiting belief. What's the opposite of that? So using me as an example, I'm ugly turned into I'm beautiful. And then I said that to myself, and I caught myself every time I said I'm ugly, and I would look in the mirror and I'd be like, you are beautiful. Like, you're amazing. Like, don't listen to that.
Yeah.
And over time, you change the program in your head. So that thought becomes a lie. And then every time it does come up, you just go, bullshit.
Yeah, and essentially what's happening in your brain is every time that a thought is coming up in your mind that, say, for example, like I'm ugly, and you decide, actually, I'm not going to go down that path of thought and I'm going to ignore that and I'm going to say this instead. What's happening in your brain is you're creating a new pathway of thought. And over time, what happens is that pathway gets stronger and stronger and stronger, and the old pathway gets weaker. And, you know, think of it as like weeds growing over it, or like a road that's not been used for 100 years or something. And that's what starts to happen. You create new neural pathways, and that's neuroplasticity. Did I say that right?
Yes.
That's neuroplasticity. That's neuroplasticity. I cannot say this word.
You got this. Go.
And that's neuroplasticity.
Perfect. Yes, and they say, neuroscience says that neurons that fire together wire together. So I've got another great example of this in action, but also how if you don't use it, you lose it, right? So when I was around 5 to 6, my mom used to take me to swimming lessons to, learn how to swim. I became quite a good swimmer. I could do all the strokes. I could, what's it called? What's the one where you float in the thingy? I'm asking you, like, you know how to swim?
I don't know how to swim. He's asking the wrong person.
Tread water. I could tread water. I could do everything. Like, I was dope. Anyway, so I stopped going because I'd learned how to swim. And then I didn't swim for like 3 or 4 years until we went on holiday, right? Me thinking I could swim, jumped straight into the deep end of the pool and started drowning.
Oh my gosh.
Literally started drowning. My mum jumped in and saved me, and I had to wear armbands for the rest of the holiday until I learned how to swim again. So this is a perfect example of, here's something that I literally learned how to do, but over time my brain forgot it because I was not using the neural networks in my mind. So the saying, you know, if you don't use it, you use it. If you don't lose it,
if you don't use it, you lose it.
Thank you. That one. We're both getting tongue tied today. It's great, but we own it. Isn't just with things like that. Okay, it can involve studying, but it's also to do with your mind as well. Your thought patterns, they can be broken up, they can be reinforced, and they can be reprogrammed. It's all entirely down to what you use and what you don't. So, you know, if you want to formulate your main character, the version of you that is the person that shows up, has all the dreams, has that ideal relationship, has that job, career, or business that they've always wanted, has the friendship groups that are healthy and not toxic, it all begins with your mind. And I think something we often do is, the problem where we get stuck is we focus just on the mind without realizing that your thoughts influence your emotions, but also your emotions influence your thoughts. So you have to combine the two. It's not a matter of, okay, let me just change all my limiting beliefs and focus on that. You also have to realize that, okay, right, I'm having this limiting belief right now. What am I feeling? That's like step 3. You don't want to do it all at once, but start with the awareness of your thoughts, find the patterns, start working on what the opposite thought is that you want to reprogram, but then start exploring, like, oh, how am I feeling when I'm telling myself that I'm not good enough? What's going on in my body? What sensations is going on in my body when, like, I'm scared to do this or say that, or, you know, it all becomes a two-way highway where the thoughts are going to the feelings and also the feelings are going to the thoughts. Mm-hmm. So we work on them both. That is how we have a better mind-body connection. And this is one of the reasons why talk therapy alone doesn't work for most people, because they just try and think themselves out of the problem without incorporating a holistic approach where the body is involved too. Because when it comes to trauma, it isn't just stored in our heads, it's stored in our bodies as well. And this is one of the reasons we started The Art of Healing in the first place, because we discovered this in a very hard way.
Yeah, and I think as well, like, you know, going back to the mind-body connection, obviously we've spoken a little bit about what to do when the voice in your head is not being friendly and how to manage that. I think the other thing to remember as well is, if you're spending too much time in your head, it means that you're not spending enough time in the present and in the now. And it's only that we end up spending time in the head when something takes us out of the present moment. And then before we know it, we've spent an hour just thinking about something and we've not been present in our day. So that's something as well, a way to obviously start practicing being more in the present and in the body, is practicing mindfulness. Something that I would recommend, like, if you think about when, for example, you drink like a cup of tea in the morning, you probably sit there and like scroll on your phone or like think about stuff. But a really good thing to do would be just actually sit there with the cup of tea and then just enjoy the cup of tea and be present in the moment and your surroundings. And it's a small practice that you can do every single day. And other things like this as well, you know, we did this thing when we went to Amsterdam over Christmas, where we did a color walk, where we spent the entire day looking for the color green, and we found so many.
I looked for blue.
Oh yeah, actually, yes.
Thank you very much.
You looked for blue, I looked for green. But essentially, we spent the entire day being so present and noticing so much stuff around us because we were looking for a particular color. And that's another way to practice mindfulness and being aware of your surroundings and actually enjoying the present moment and being in the now, rather than being stuck in the head all the time and thinking all the time. And also as well, a lot of the time we say, you know, when we're healing trauma and we are dysregulated, or we're trying to regulate our nervous systems and we're trying to process the trauma that's stored in our body and all of the feelings that come with it, overthinking is the way to avoid doing all of that. Spending time in your mind is the way to do all of that. You have to be in the body and build that mind-body connection, because the thing is, a lot of the times trauma disconnects us from our body and we get stuck in the mind. So it's about building that connection again by practicing things like mindfulness, by telling the voice in your head to F off, because, hey, I don't need your opinion, thank you today. I'm going to be great. I'm going to smash that speech. I'm going to do really well in that performance, or whatever it is that you've got going on. And reminding yourself, hey, I can do these things. And actually, I'm enjoying being in the present and now. And you'll find more joy in doing things like that as well, and find more joy in your life and your day. by practicing more mindfulness, because it's great being alive and being in the now.
And you're probably sat walking, whatever you're doing, listening to this thinking, all right, cool. So all I have to do is like overcome my thoughts and reprogram and then change them. And then I'll never have these thoughts again. That is a lie. You will always have these kind of thoughts. Always, 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 always. Nobody in the right mind, even the people that you most admire who seem like they have it all together, that have everything that you could imagine that you'd want, let's say, I don't know what that looks like for you, but whatever, those people, they have negative thoughts.
Even your biggest heroes have negative thoughts. Everyone has bad days. Everyone has times where they doubt themselves. Everyone has moments where they feel like they're not good enough. And it's not about, oh, but how can they? It's actually probably just about they manage it a lot better. So you don't probably see it as much, or you think it doesn't really affect them as much. So it's about how you learn to manage these thoughts and feelings when they come up for you and deal with them. And if it gets really bad, something funny that I read that you could do if like you're having a really bad day and you're feeling really bad about yourself is just ask yourself what your dog would say about you at like a dog only cocktail party. If all the dogs were sat together talking about their owners, like, yeah, my owner strokes me 100 times. He gives me all the snacks at the table. Just think of all the great things your dog or your cat would say about you. And then you'll immediately feel great again.
And if you don't have a pet per se, something else that you may look after could be a friend, a family member. Maybe it's even yourself in an alternate reality. What would yourself say about you if it got the chance and you were your best friend? Because at the end of the day, that's what we all should be striving for. You should have great relationships, but the best relationship that you can have and that you should have is with yourself. If you don't have a good relationship with yourself first and foremost, then that will reflect in every other relationship you have. If you're thinking like, yo, why do I keep finding the toxic boyfriends and girlfriends, or like do I get in these really bad relationships where my friends just don't seem to really be my friends and they're always putting me down and they don't seem to support me in a way that I support them, and it's always like take somewhere it's because the relationship with you is not great and they're just reflecting that. You're used to having this bad relationship, so to you it's normal. You don't even realize that you're in it in the first place. So you have to start being your best friend. That way your doors will open up in every other way. You start being your best friend, the thoughts will start becoming less, your feelings will start becoming less, but not until you start to address.
Yeah, and sometimes the most toxic person in your life is the voice in your head. So you got to learn to tell it to mind its business, close the door on its way out, thank it for its opinion. Because it's like Paris said, when you start having a better relationship with yourself, that voice in your mind gets kinder, it gets softer, it doesn't say as many mean things to you, and you start to build more self-worth and self-confidence, and then that starts to reflect in other areas of your life as well.
So yeah, it's, start small, do the practices that we suggested. If you need to listen back, then listen back. Honestly, this doing this work is literally the root of healing. Yes, a lot of it is feelings and emotions. The other thing is thoughts, right? So if we're not dealing with this stuff, then we can't ever expect to change. The only way that you ever achieve anything in life is because somewhere along the line you believed that you could. Somewhere along the line you listened to that voice and you said, yo, that's bullshit. I'm not going to listen to you. I'm going to do it anyway. And where we are right now in this place where we're stuck, probably because of all the trauma that we've been through and it's made us get into this stuck place, we've now started believing the voice and not believing in ourselves as much, and not realizing that, I used to overcome this voice. I used to tell this voice to fuck off. I used to not listen to this voice. Think back to when you were a child. When you were trying new things, did you used to doubt yourself? Did you used to tell yourself that you couldn't do it? Did you used to look at the world and think, oh God, this is all scary, I don't know what to do? Or did you look at it with excitement? Was everything a fun adventure for you? Did you even have those thoughts in your head to begin with? You probably didn't, not until an adult gave them to you.
Yeah.
But that's a podcast for another story.
And I think as well, like, sometimes telling the voice in your head to shut up and, saying I do have self-worth, or I am capable of doing this, I have got this capacity, it will seem like an act of rebellion. So like, I encourage you to have like the audacity of a 14-year-old rebellious teenager who's going to go get all the fake tattoos and piercings that mum and dad don't want them to have. That's what I encourage you to embody as you're telling the voice in your head to get lost.
With the heart of your 5-year-old self that just wanted to have fun and play.
Exactly.
And it's a winning formula. Honestly, it is. But yeah, it has been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for listening to us today. We hope that we've given you a lot to think about. Get it? That was a good pun, right?
Dun, dun, dun.
And we will see you next week for another episode on the Art of Healing podcast. Ciao for now.
Bing.